Good evening, friends, and welcome to Dark Historian. Tonight, I've brought you a quiet, calming tale, a gentle bedtime sleep story for wakeful minds and wandering hearts. This video is part of the Boring History for Sleep Stories series, made to help you unwind and fall asleep fast. In this episode, I'll share soothing sleep stories that invite your thoughts to slow down and your body to let go. If your mind is still busy, or if peace feels far away, you found the right place, so gently close your eyes, take a deep breath, and let these sleep-inducing chronicles of history carry you into rest. Your silent night begins now, with Dark Historian ***, Story 1. Tea leaves and calling cards. A lady's hour between noon and dusk. Good evening, dear friend. Dim your lights now, and gather your favorite blanket around your shoulders. Let the hush of the night curl softly at the edges of your mind. As you sink deeper into stillness, imagine the gentle rustle of skirts against polished wood, the delicate clink of a porcelain teacup, and the near-silent creak of a carriage rolling away from a London townhouse. Tonight, we drift together into a world of small gestures, unspoken judgments, and the precise choreography of Victorian social life. In the hours between noon and dusk, a lady's world was not merely one of idle leisure, but of orchestrated appearances. You find yourself in a drawing room, sunlight slipping through heavy velvet curtains, illuminating the embroidered patterns on a delicate settee. Each thread tells a story of silent afternoons spent with a needle, shaping roses that will never wither. You sink into this softness, feeling the starch of your linen chemise beneath layers of petticoats and a corset gently pressing against your ribs. A small clock on the mantelpiece ticks on, its brass hands crawling steadily past the hour. At precisely 3 o'clock, a gentle knock announces the first caller of the day. You rise, adjusting a silk ribbon at your collar, smoothing the folds of your gown. Visitors in this hour are not merely guests. They are tokens of your standing, small reflections of your place in society's shimmering, fragile mirror. Your lady's maid hovers just beyond the doorframe, her eyes attentive but downcast. She has already prepared the tray, delicate cucumber sandwiches with the crusts carefully trimmed, lemon sponge cake dusted in fine sugar, and small pots of preserves glowing like amber in the one light. A silver teapot, engraved with your mother's initials, sits atop a warmer. Each element has been arranged precisely. Too many cakes might seem garish, too few, stingy. The arrangement is an art form, a quiet jewel of social finesse. You hear the soft shuffle of a guest's feet on the carpet runner. Perhaps it is Mrs. Willoughby, that tireless collector of gossip, or Miss Pembroke, whose mother is forever hoping for an eligible match. As you step forward, you remind yourself to tilt your head just so, to smile without revealing too much eagerness. Everything must appear effortless, though beneath your calm gaze, your mind races with small calculations. How many visits have I returned this week? Whose card have I not yet acknowledged? Calling cards are the currency of this gentle war. Each card is a subtle statement, as much about absence as presence. You remember carefully how many cards were left in your silver tray this morning, the little pile by the door, each embossed in gold or pale blue, some adorned with floral borders. When a caller leaves a card, it might say, "I visited," but it might also say, "I expect you to reciprocate." Declining to return a call could be a social slight that reverberates through parlors and tea tables for weeks. The door opens, and in steps Miss Pembroke, her gloved hands folded precisely at her waist. She offers a small curtsy, which you mirror gracefully, Her bonnet is of a pale lavender silk, tied beneath her chin with a thin, wavering bow. You notice a faint smudge on the hem of her skirt, perhaps a misstep on the damp cobblestones outside, but you do not mention it. To do so would be unthinkably rude. Instead, you comment on her hat, on the crisp morning air, on the roses that are just beginning to bloom in the garden. Miss Pembroke sits on the edge of the settee, as though she is prepared to flee at any moment. She lowers her gaze to her gloves, tracing a finger along a faint seam. You pour the tea with a steady hand, ensuring that each cup is filled only to thirds full. Too much and it might spill. Too little and it suggests frugality. Milk is offered second, not first, for, in polite society, tea before milk is the accepted sequence. You watch the thin ribbon of milk bloom in the golden liquid, delicate as a watercolor wash. You ask after her mother's health, her embroidery, her recent visit to Brighton. Her replies are polite, measured, and, above all, non-committal. Real conversations hover invisibly above the steaming cups, whispered only in raised eyebrows and sidelong glances. Has Miss Pembroke received any new attentions from Mr. Abernathy? Is she preparing a new gown for the charity ball? Each gentle question is an invitation into a labyrinth of social positioning. The clock chimes the quarter hour. Your maid appears, once more, bringing in fresh tea, removing empty plates with silent efficiency. She moves like a ghost, never interrupting the delicate flow of conversation. You think, for a fleeting moment, about her life, how she rises before dawn, tends to the hearth, polishes the silver, and disappears again into the background. You wonder if she dreams of these afternoon teas, or if she finds them as tedious as polishing buttons. But your mind drifts back almost immediately to the task at hand, maintaining the gentle current of civility. Outside, the narrow street is filled with other carriages, the steady clip-clop of horses punctuating the hush of the drawing room. A flower vendor's call drifts faintly through the open transom window, a bright note in the otherwise subdued symphony of the afternoon. You imagine the pale-faced children clutching tufts of violets, the maid bargaining softly for a sprig to brighten the dinner table. All of this life unfurls beyond your window, yet it remains at a polite distance, carefully separated by heavy drapes and layers of etiquette. Miss Pembroke. She promises to call again next week, her voice light but edged with an almost imperceptible urgency. You escort her to the door, offer a final curtsy, and return to the drawing room, where the air still holds the ghost of her lavender scent. You adjust the cushions, straighten the small tapestry draped over the chair arm, and collect the remaining teacups. Another caller may arrive soon. Perhaps Mrs. Willoughby this time, with her endless stream of tidbits about distant cousins and ill-advised elopements. Or Miss Fairchild, whose knowledge of the latest Parisian fashions borders on the encyclopedic. Each visit will require the same gentle balancing act, the same choreography of smiles and silences. In these hours between noon and dusk, a lady's identity is polished like her silver, each exchange a small polishing cloth, smoothing edges and highlighting just the right curves. Yet behind each smooth surface is a churning sea of worry, ambition, and quiet fatigue. You lower yourself onto the settee once more, allowing your mind to drift over the soft ripples of silk at your ankles, the slow, measured breathing beneath. Your corset, the tick of the clock, endlessly patient, endlessly observant. The sun begins its slow descent, sending longer shadows across the parlor floor. The lace curtains catch the light in tiny webs of silver, and you watch dust motes dance lazily in the air. each one a tiny universe drifting in its own quiet orbit. You wonder if somewhere outside, someone watches the same dust and thinks of you, a distant suitor, a friend fallen out of favor, a cousin with whom you shared secrets in childhood. Your eyelids grow heavy and your breathing deepens. The day is not yet done, but for a moment you let yourself drift into the hush between visits, the gentle lull of a house paused in waiting. You do not know yet what letters may arrive tomorrow, or which cards will find their way to your tray. You do not know what news will ripple through the parlors next week, but in this hour you are suspended, held lightly in a web of silken etiquette, watched only by the quiet clock and the fading light. And here, dear friend, we leave you for a moment, lingering in the delicate hush of a Victorian drawing room, with tea cooling on the tray, and the world beyond your window just beginning to slip into twilight. Asterisk. The fading afternoon light spills across your parlor like pale silk, softening the sharpness of the day and inviting your thoughts to wander beyond the edges of the tea tray. As you lean back against the settee, your fingers still idly trace the delicate embroidery on your sleeve. Each tiny stitch speaks of hours spent in quiet solitude, of nimble fingers guided by candlelight. Long after the house has fallen silent, you hear the distant clatter of carriage wheels again, a gentle percussion against the cobblestones. Perhaps it is another visitor making her approach, or perhaps a neighbor returning from a morning spent at the modiste, arms full of new ribbons and lace. In the drawing room, time stretches and curls, like steam rising from a teacup. It is unhurried, and so too must you be. The maid appears quietly in the doorway, carrying a small silver salver, upon which rests a single envelope. The letter bears a fine wax seal, stamped with an ornate family crest. You recognize it immediately, Lady Belgrave. A thrill, faint as a tremor, runs through you. Lady Belgrave's invitations are not handed out lightly. Her teas are whispered about in every sitting room and discussed endlessly at the mill. She is a queen of subtle influence, a keeper of social keys that can open or close many doors. Your hands tremble almost imperceptibly as you break the seal. The creamy paper crackles softly. Inside, her spidery, elegant handwriting confirms what your heart already suspects: an invitation to attend her exclusive Thursday afternoon gathering. You draw a slow, measured breath, steadying your thoughts. What shall you wear? Which brooch best strikes the balance between tasteful refinement and gentle daring? As you ponder, the image of your wardrobe rises before your mind's eye, a cavern of silks and velvets, each gown a silent witness to countless dinners, dances, and quiet heartbreaks. You recall the pale blue gown with its delicate pearl trim, once admired by Mrs. Fairchild, or the moss-green taffeta, whose deep folds shimmer mysteriously under lamplight. Choosing a gown is not a mere act of dressing. It is a whispered conversation with the room you are about to enter, a promise that you belong, that you understand the language of subtle cues and shaded glances. Once more, the maid appears, this time to clear away the tea things. You watch as she stacks the fine porcelain cups with infinite care, her rough hands deft despite the fine china. There is something almost reverential in the way she handles each piece, as though she understands the weight of your social theatre, even if she is never invited to perform upon its stage. The soft chime of the clock reminds you that it is nearly time to write replies to your morning correspondence. You rise, move toward the writing desk by the window, and settle into the backed chair with its crewel work cushion. Your writing implements are arrayed like instruments in a surgical tray: a mother-of-pearl pen, a slender glass inkwell, a small blotter pressed with gilt filigree. You begin with Lady Belgrave's invitation, your hand gliding over the paper in graceful, measured curves. It would be the highest honor, you write, to accept your kind invitation for Thursday next. The words spill like cream, each carefully chosen to convey warmth without impropriety. Next, you pen a gentle refusal to Mrs. Willoughby, who had suggested a gathering on the same afternoon. The refusal is wrapped in layers of apology and regret, yet designed to reinforce your proximity to more influential circles. It is a game of chess in script and ink, each word a careful move. As your pen scratches on, you notice a tiny ink splatter. On your wrist, a rebellious dot against your pale skin. You pause, watching the droplet grow, then blot it away with a small sigh. Even here, in your quietest tasks, the weight of perfect presentation presses close when the letters are finally sealed and stacked neatly upon the silver tray. You push back from the desk and stand, stretching your arms in the fading light. You cross the room to the fireplace, where a small fire sputters quietly. The day's warmth has receded, replaced by the cool embrace of evening. You draw a shawl about your shoulders and settle again upon the settee, pulling your knees delicately. Beneath you, as the hours drift on, you hear the faint murmur of voices below, the butler greeting a delivery boy, the cook calling instructions to the scullery maid. These sounds echo up through the floorboards like a gentle heartbeat, reminding you of the unseen world that sustains your serene afternoon in your hand. You hold a small volume of poetry, Tennyson perhaps, or Elizabeth Barrett Browning. The pages are soft from repeated readings, the margins dotted with penciled notes from a younger, more idealistic version of yourself. You read slowly, savoring each line as though it were a sugared violet melting on your tongue. You pause now and again to gaze at the window. Outside, the city is settling into its evening hush. Gas lamps flicker to life, casting long golden pools. Upon the wet pavements, a gentle mist curls around the street corners, softening the clatter of carriage wheels and the sharp calls of newspaper boys. Your mind drifts to the guests who will gather at Lady Belgrave's, men and women gliding through, rooms scented with lilac, water, and beeswax polish, voices murmuring beneath chandeliers heavy with crystal. You imagine yourself moving among them, a quiet silhouette in pale blue silk, your gloved fingers resting lightly upon the back of a chair as you lean forward to catch the latest whisper. In these imagined scenes, you feel both powerful and fragile, like a porcelain figurine balanced upon a narrow shelf. One slip, a misjudged remark, an ill-timed laugh, and everything might tumble into scandal or social exile. But for now, the fantasy holds, shimmering like moonlight on the Thames. A knock interrupts your reverie. The maid returns with a fresh tray, a small pot of warm milk, a plate of thinly sliced sponge cake, and a folded note. You unfold the note with quiet curiosity. It is from your cousin Henrietta, who writes in breathless strokes about her new suitor and her mother's fretful approval. You smile faintly, your thoughts swimming between envy and amusement. You sip the warm milk slowly, feeling it slide like velvet down your throat. The sponge cake crumbles delicately between your fingers, leaving a trail of sweet crumbs upon your plate. These small indulgences are reminders that life's pleasures, though carefully portioned, are meant to be savored fully. A log shifts in the fireplace, sending a small shower of sparks into the chimney. You listen to their faint hiss, allowing the sound to blend with the soft ticking of the clock. Each tick feels like a gentle push further into twilight, each spark a fleeting star against the dusk. You find your gaze returning again and again to the folded note from Henrietta. Perhaps tomorrow you will visit her, share tea in her small but cheerfully disordered sitting room. Listen to her chatter about suitors and dressmakers and the endless negotiations of marriage. For now, the thought is enough to warm your heart against the evening's chill. The final light recedes beyond the rooftops, leaving the room bathed in the flickering glow of the fire. You rise once more, moving slowly, as though in a dream. You draw the heavy curtains closed, pinning them shut with small brass hooks. The world outside disappears into a dark hush, and your parlour becomes a small, self-contained universe. You stand before the mirror, unpinning your hair with practiced fingers. The long strands fall in soft waves across your shoulders, a private freedom reserved for these quiet, candlelit hours. You study your reflection for a moment, the fine lines at the corners of your eyes, the faint flush of excitement still lingering on your cheeks. There is a vulnerability here, unshielded by hats or gloves or polite small talk. You allow yourself a small, secret smile before turning away. You fold your gown carefully across the back of a chair and slip into a loose dressing gown. It's cotton, soft and comforting against your skin. You return to the settee, settling into the cushions with a sigh. You draw a thin shawl around your shoulders, letting your mind drift over the day's small triumphs and tiny anxieties. You think of Lady Belgrave's invitation, of Miss Pembroke's anxious gaze, of Henrietta's flushed excitement. Each thought flickers like a lantern on a foggy path, illuminating only a few steps at a time. In these final hours before bed, you feel the house quieting around you. The maid passes through one last time, gathering stray teacups and fluffing the hearth rug. You hear her footsteps retreat down the corridor, the faint click of a closing door outside. A gentle drizzle begins to tap against the window panes, a soft percussion that soothes the restless mind. You close your eyes, breathing deeply, the scent of tea leaves and old books mingling with the faint aroma of the cooling fire. In this stillness, you sense the delicate machinery of your social world ticking quietly on cards being written, dresses being altered, menus planned, small alliances brokered behind lace curtains. You are both within it and apart from it, a participant and a silent observer. As you drift towards sleep, you hold on to the softest threads of the day, the silken brush of your hair, the velvet warmth of milk in your throat, the hush of your heartbeat beneath layers of linen and silk. Tomorrow will bring new visits, new letters, new tiny dramas to navigate with poised serenity. But for now, you let the rain's quiet rhythm guide you deeper into rest. You imagine the droplets collecting on the iron railings outside, slipping silently into the garden below, nourishing the roses that tomorrow will grace your drawing room. The night has deepened now, wrapping the world outside your window in an ink-blue hush. The glow from the hearth is reduced to a low, warm ember, and the candles flicker faintly in their glass holders, their small flames quivering each time you shift your weight upon the settee. You draw your shawl closer and rest your head against the embroidered cushion, feeling the long day's quiet weight settle into your shoulders. Your mind drifts easily between small memories of the day, Miss Pembroke's hesitant laughter, the gleam of Lady Belgrave's invitation, the slow dance of steam above your teacup. These recollections slip through your thoughts like silk scarves in a gentle breeze, tangling softly before drifting away again. Somewhere down the corridor, the final chores are being completed. You hear the rustle of the housekeeper's skirts as she makes her last inspection of the silver cabinet. the faint sound of the scullery maid emptying dishwater into the backyard drain. Every noise is a comforting reassurance. The household is winding down, the small gears of your daily life slowly coming to rest. You rise from the settee at last and cross the room, your slippers silent against the polished floorboards. At your writing desk, you find a small folded sheet of paper you left earlier, a half-finished note meant for an old friend in the country. You had begun it in the morning, then set it aside when Miss Pembroke arrived. Now, in the gentle solitude of late evening, you open it again. You smooth the paper carefully, as though it were a fragile wing. The inked words greet you like an old melody. My dearest Eleanor, I write to you as the roses bloom beyond my window, each petal unfolding like a small secret. You smile faintly. The language feels almost theatrical in this quiet hour. Yet you feel no desire to change it. You add a few final lines, describing the rain now pattering against the panes, the upcoming gathering at Lady Belgrave's, the pleasure or anxiety of choosing the right gown. When you finish, you fold the letter and slip it into an addressed envelope. You press your signet ring into the soft wax seal, watching as the design takes shape, a small, curling ivy leaf, your family's chosen emblem. You set the letter gently upon the tray by the door, to be posted first thing in the morning. You stand for a moment by the window, pulling back the heavy velvet curtain just enough to see the world beyond. The rain has grown heavier, turning the street lamps into small halos of blurred gold. The occasional carriage rolls past, its lamps bobbing like small fireflies in the mist. You wonder who rides within, a gentleman returning from a club, a lady hurrying home after a late supper, a servant carrying a final urgent message. Each silhouette feels like a ghostly echo of the daytime world you inhabit so carefully that last. You leave the window and make your way through the dimly lit corridor to your dressing room. The maid has laid out your nightgown, a garment of soft white lawn, edged with tiny mother-of-pearl buttons and lace cuffs. You unfasten your day dress with slow, practiced fingers, feeling the sudden relief as each hook releases its tight grip upon your ribs. The corset follows, its laces unspooled like a sigh of resignation. You move through these motions without hurry, as though each garment holds a final whisper of the day's conversations. Once free of layers and constraints, you slip into the nightgown, the fabric featherlight against your skin. You brush your hair slowly, each stroke gentle and rhythmic, the bristles tracing your scalp like a lullaby. Strands fall softly over your shoulders, dark against the pale fabric. You catch your reflection in the mirror and see a different self. No longer the poised hostess, no longer the watchful listener of social undercurrents, but simply a woman ready to fold herself into the safe embrace of sleep. The bed awaits you, piled with downy pillows and a quilt embroidered with delicate vines and blossoms. You slip beneath the covers, feeling their coolness give way to your warmth. You adjust the pillows until they cradle your head just so, then pull the quilt up to your chin. Before you close your eyes, you gaze once more around your room. The faint glow from the hearth plays upon the wallpaper, making the patterns of roses. And ivy seem to sway and breathe. Your eyes settle on a small table by the bed, a glass of water, a tiny jar of violet pastilles, a volume of poetry. These small comforts anchor you, each one a gentle promise that tomorrow will unfold much like today, measured, delicate, quietly demanding. Your thoughts drift again to the social world that has defined your day. You see the parade of faces, Miss Pembroke's anxious smile, Mrs. Willoughby's raised eyebrow, Lady Belgrave's spidery handwriting. Each interaction feels like a ripple upon a pond, fading slowly but leaving faint rings that touch every corner of your small universe. You remember the calling cards, piled neatly in the silver tray by the entrance hall. Tomorrow you will sort them again, noting which visits to return, which invitations to extend, which names to tuck away like pressed flowers in a book. Each card is more than paper. It is a quiet plea for acknowledgement, a coded whisper of connection or ambition. Your eyes close, and yet your mind lingers upon these thoughts. You imagine yourself in Lady Belgrave's drawing room, the heavy scent of lilies, the murmur of fans against lace gloves, the precise tilt of a gentleman's head as he offers a greeting. You see yourself gliding across the carpet, exchanging pleasantries with practiced ease. It is a dream and a duty, a dance that never truly ends, as sleep begins to weigh upon your eyelids. You hear the rain's gentle insistence against the window. Each drop feels like a small blessing, washing the day from your thoughts and carrying you deeper into rest. You allow yourself to drift, the final conscious moments painted in soft hues of lavender and pearl. You wonder, just before slipping, beyond waking, what tomorrow's tea tray might hold, whether there will be new gossip, a surprising letter, or a quiet morning spent alone with your embroidery hoop. The uncertainty is gentle, not frightening, like a soft curve in a familiar path. The world of calling cards and whispered judgments recedes slowly, replaced by the hush of your heartbeat and the deep, silent sea of sleep that rises around you. You give yourself to it willingly, knowing that in this quiet abyss there are no letters to answer, no gowns to choose, no social maps to navigate, only the soft rhythm of your breath, the delicate warmth of your bed, and the echo of distant carriages beyond the darkened streets. In this final hour, you are no longer the lady of the drawing room, no longer the strategist of calling cards and guest lists. You are simply a sleeper, suspended in a world of pale dreams and gentle forgettings. Your mind floats, unanchored, through small fragments of memory, a teaspoon tapping porcelain, a ribbon falling from your hair, a single rose petal trembling upon a saucer's edge. These images slip past, soft and ungraspable, until even they dissolve into darkness. The rain outside becomes a distant lullaby, the house a warm cocoon around your resting spirit. You rest now, held within the careful grace of your own making, no longer watched, no longer needing to watch. You have navigated another day in the quiet labyrinth of Victorian decorum, and now the night enfolds you, steady and forgiving. And as your breathing deepens and your consciousness loosens its hold, a final thought drifts across the quiet sea of your mind. What small kindnesses or cruelties will tomorrow bring? What glances will be exchanged over teacups? What secrets will linger behind lace fans? But those questions will wait. For tonight, the world has shrunk to the gentle embrace of your sheets, the hush of rain, and the small, perfect stillness of a single moment between dusk and dawn. Sleep well, dear friend. Rest softly in this fading glow of lamps and linen, and dream of nothing but calm corridors, warm shawls, and the slow, endless ballet of tea leaves and calling cards. And now, let's drift into a new corner of forgotten history. Story 2. Buttoned Boots and Silent Gazers. The unspoken rules of courtship. Good evening again, dear friend. Allow yourself to sink even deeper into your pillow tonight. Let the world beyond your door melt away as we step softly into another chamber of the Victorian heart, the secretive, fluttering, almost invisible theater of courtship. In this world, every glance is a question, every lowered eyelash an answer. Love, or something like it, was wrapped tightly in layers of lace. Propriety and unspoken vows. It was a ballet of eyes across a ballroom floor. A single pressed flower slipped between pages. A hand extended to steady a lady as she alighted from a carriage. Imagine yourself at the threshold of a grand London ballroom, its entrance arching. Above you, like the nave of a quiet chapel. Outside, the city hums with its nightly mysteries. Hansom cabs rattling down rain-slicked streets. Gas lamps casting blurred halos upon misty windows. Stray dogs rustling near lamplit doorsteps. Inside, however, is a carefully arranged galaxy of light and sound, each detail curated to the edge of perfection. You slip into the ballroom slowly, as though stepping into a warm bath. The floor is polished to a mirrored glow. The chandelier overhead drip golden droplets of light upon silken gowns and velvet sleeves. A small orchestra huddles in one corner. The violins, soft weeping, blending into the quiet thunder of hundreds of hushed conversations dot around the edges of the room stand. The chaperones, mothers and aunts and elder sisters, they're watchful, eyes sharp as needle points, scanning each delicate interaction for potential scandal or triumph. In this dim margin of the room, each glance exchanged between young people is recorded, catalogued, judged. Your eyes catch those of a young gentleman across the floor. He wears a finely tailored evening coat, its collar starched to a near architectural precision. His hair is sleeked back, catching stray sparks of chandelier light. He nods once, barely perceptible, yet it is enough to quicken your breath beneath the firm embrace of your corset. You look away quickly, heart fluttering like a trapped moth. But in this small kingdom of etiquette, a single gaze can say more than a letter ever could. The evening unfolds in a series of gentle maneuvers, a discreet request to join the next quadrille, a sudden hesitation at the refreshment table, a gloved hand offered in the corridor outside the powder room. As you are led onto the dance floor, you feel the familiar weight of expectation pressing upon your spine. Every step, every pivot is watched, discussed, perhaps even whispered about tomorrow during tea. You focus on the music, the measured rise and fall of strings and piano, the rustling sweep of satin skirts brushing against your ankles. The gentleman's gloved hand rests lightly upon your back, his other hand guiding yours in the delicate language of the waltz. His fingertips press ever so slightly, a pressure that suggests both invitation and restraint. You find yourself moving almost without thought, your body echoing each subtle cue, your mind clouded in the sweet mist of possibility around you. Other couples spin past in blurred constellations, each orbiting within their own tiny universe of glances and unspoken hopes. A girl in pale lavender blushes furiously each time her partner draws near. Another young man fumbles a step, his cheeks aflame with both effort and desire. At the edge of the dance floor, you glimpse the chaperones, their lips pressed into pale lines. A stray smile might escape if they see a particularly graceful turn, or perhaps a tiny nod of approval if a gentleman's decorum shines through. Yet more often, their eyes narrow, their heads tilt slightly, like sentries watching for tiny cracks in the dam of propriety. When the music finally dwindles into silence, the room releases a collective breath. You curtsy gracefully, your knees quivering beneath layers of silk and crinoline. He bows, his eyes locking onto yours for a single heartbeat, longer than is strictly necessary. You both step backward, the absence of touch as electrifying as the touch itself had been. You retreat toward a small alcove off the main ballroom. The air there cooler and scented faintly of roses and spilled punch. You rest a gloved hand against the marble balustrade, steadying your breath. Across the corridor, you catch sight of a friend, Miss Everly, her face aglow with excitement. She rushes over, cheeks flushed, fan fluttering wildly in her hand. "Did you see?" she whispers, her voice barely above the rustle of her gown. "He held your hand a fraction longer than with any other partner tonight." You shush her gently, but a small, helpless smile betrays your pleasure. This is the lifeblood of Victorian courtship. These half-seconds of contact, these stolen glances more intoxicating than wine. A servant approaches with a tray of lemonade, the glasses beaded, with tiny droplets of condensation. You accept one, feeling the cold seep into your gloved fingers. Each sip sharpens your senses again, grounding you in the fragrant hush of the corridor. The orchestra strikes up another tune, this time a lively polka. You hear the squeals of laughter as a few brave couples dive into its energetic spins. The restrained elegance of earlier dancers momentarily dissolved into cheerful abandon. You and Miss Everly watch from the edge, exchanging small, delighted laughs. Beyond the dancing and the careful chaperoning lies an entire code of conduct, too subtle to record on paper. You recall the unspoken rules whispered to you by your mother. Never speak first unless spoken to. Always avert your gaze after a compliment. Never allow a gentleman to escort you down an unlit garden path. Each rule is a thread in the fragile tapestry of your reputation. Your mind flits to other suitors. Young Mr. Hensley with his nervous bow and eager stammer, or Mr. Sinclair, who once dared to send you a single violet tucked into a book of sonnets. Such gestures live on long after the evening ends, replayed endlessly in the privacy of your own thoughts as you lie awake in the moonlit quiet of your room. The hour grows late. You feel it in the subtle changes around you, the maid slipping into the corner to extinguish one of the wall sconces, the increased rustling of skirts as women prepare to dan their outer cloaks, the murmured goodnights echoing faintly beneath the final strains of music. Miss Everly leans in one last time, her voice softer now, tinged with gentle envy. "He may send a card tomorrow," she murmurs. The thought warms you more than the heavy velvet cloak draped across your shoulders as your carriage is called. You step into the cool night air, the mist wrapping around you like a veil. Your footman steadies you as you climb up, your hand lingering, just slightly in his full balance. The door closes with a quiet click, sealing you inside a small cocoon of dark velvet and the faint scent of lavender sachet. As the carriage rolls away, you peer through the tiny window at the ballroom's illuminated entrance. You watch the silhouettes flitting past, fans fluttering, gentlemen bowing, a lost glove retrieved from the ground. It all seems to glow from within, a distant star you have just visited and now must leave behind. Inside the carriage, you settle into the cushioned seat, the gentle swaying motion lulling your breath into a slower rhythm. Your gloved hands rest on your lap, fingers still tingling faintly from the brief contact on the dance floor. You close your eyes for a moment and let the night replay in small, shimmering fragments, the music, the gleam of chandelier crystals, the barely there warmth of his hand upon your back. You arrive home to a house already hushed for the night. The butler opens the door, his expression unreadable but efficient as always. A maid takes your cloak and helps you step carefully over the threshold. Your mother appears briefly in her dressing gown, her hair pinned up in a flurry of silver curls. She studies your face intently, searching for signs. Did you dance enough? Did he notice you? Did you uphold every silent rule passed down from countless mothers before her? You nod once, a small, reassuring gesture. Her shoulders relax, and she retreats up the staircase without a word, her slippers making the faintest sigh against the carpet. You ascend to your room, where the night feels deeper, more personal. Your lady's maid awaits, her eyes brighten, the candlelight as she unbuttons your gown and helps you out of your delicate slippers. You move slowly, as though every layer you shed is another veil of the evening's memories slipping away, at last. Wrapped in your nightdress, you sit at your small vanity. You draw the brush through your hair, counting each stroke. 1, 2, 3. Your mind unspools, replaying conversations in a soft echo, reliving each glance and step and gentle pressure of fingertips. You pause to study your face in the mirror. There, in the faint glow, you see not just the young woman who danced beneath the chandeliers, but also the girl who once picked daisies in the garden and pretended they were tiaras. Behind your reflection flickers the ghost of every gentle hope and every quiet disappointment, each layered softly upon your expression like the fine powder on your cheeks. Tonight, in the hush of your chamber, you allow yourself to imagine tomorrows. Possibilities. Perhaps there will be a calling card waiting at breakfast, its edges embossed and its message thrillingly ambiguous. Perhaps there will be a bouquet of flowers sent anonymously, each petal a secret promise. Or perhaps nothing at all will arrive, and the day will unfold quietly, with only embroidery and letters to fill the hours. The candle beside your bed gutters slightly, its flame leaning toward the window as though yearning to slip into the night. You blow it out gently, the room collapsing into soft, soothing darkness. Morning in the Victorian household is a quiet, methodical ceremony, almost as carefully orchestrated as an evening in the ballroom. The day rises, not in a sudden flood, but in a gentle seep, a pale light sliding across wallpaper, patterns of ivy and roses, the distant clink of breakfast service being arranged below stairs. You awaken slowly, still nestled within the gentle fog of dreams. Your fingers brush the edge of your pillow, feeling the faint coolness where your cheek had rested. As you open your eyes, the room greets you with that hush of expectation. The small writing desk standing ready by the window, the neatly folded gloves on the side table, the dressing gown draped invitingly over the back of a chair. Your maid enters softly, her footsteps muffled against the thick carpet. She carries a tray with tea, the first gentle warmth of the day, and a small stack of correspondence tied with a pale blue ribbon. As you sip, the flavor of the tea soothes the raw edges of your mind, waking you without jarring. Your eyes move to the stack of letters, your heart lifting with a familiar blend of curiosity and cautious hope. You reach for them slowly, savoring each delicate rustle of paper as if peeling petals from a flower. Among the notes from friends and invitations to garden luncheons, one envelope stands apart, creamy, heavy, edged in a fine border. You recognize the gentleman's handwriting instantly. The letter is short, each line measured, restrained. Yet between those spare words, a soft undercurrent pulses like a hidden spring. Your grace on the floor last evening was beyond compare. Might I request the honor of a walk together at the Serpentine this Thursday? Your breath hitches, the letter trembling slightly between your fingers. A walk, a true moment alone, even under the discreet watch of a chaperone. It is an invitation, so loaded with unspoken meaning it hums against your skin. In that instant, all the elaborate dances, the veiled glances, and the carefully turned phrases of the ballroom culminate in this single, simple request. You press the letter gently to your chest for a moment before laying it flat upon the desk. You imagine the serpentines winding paths, the dappled light filtering through summer leaves, the hush of water lapping at the banks. In your mind's eye, you walk beside him in the morning mist, skirts whispering against gravel, every word. You exchange both a step forward and a careful pause. Before you can drift too far into this reverie, your mother enters. Her eyes go directly to the letter on your desk. She lifts one delicate brow, a silent question in her glance. You offer a small nod, and she exhales softly, her fingers relaxing around her shawl. No need for words, the machinery of Victorian. Matchmaking turns as silently as the great clock in the front hall. You rise to begin the day's elaborate rituals of preparation. The maid draws your bath, warm water infused with lavender and a touch of rosemary, filling the room with fragrant clouds. As you sink into it, you feel your mind slow, each breath unfurling like silk in warm hands. You imagine his voice, low and careful, the subtle inflection when he asks after your health, or comments on the swans gliding past on the water. After the bath, your maid helps you into layers of underclothing, the chemise, the corset laced in tight, the petticoats, billowing softly around your legs. Each piece is a gentle armor, a daily reminder of the invisible code you inhabit. You study yourself in the tall mirror, each garment a line of poetry added to your shape, an ode to modesty, a quiet hymn to formality. Finally comes the gown, a soft dove-grey silk, chosen precisely for its understated elegance. A small lace collar frames your throat, and a tiny sapphire brooch pins the final whisper of fabric at your shoulder. Your hair is swept up and pinned with delicate tortoiseshell. Combs, stray curls teased free to soften the arrangement. You are no longer merely a young woman. You are now an artwork of expectation and subtle messages. At breakfast, the conversation flows around you like a gentle stream. Your mother discusses an upcoming charity bazaar. Your father studies the morning paper, occasionally muttering about distant colonial affairs or a newly minted railway route. You nod where appropriate, your thoughts half submerged in that Thursday walk. You catch fragments of gossip. Lady Fairchild's niece has returned from Paris with scandalously modern hat styles. Mr. Sinclair has been seen walking without a hat in the early morning fog, an act your father describes with mild horror. Each snippet is tucked away carefully, ready to be retrieved at the next tea, or whispered behind a fan at a musicale after breakfast. You move into the drawing room to answer your letters. You select fine paper and a pen with an ivory handle. As you begin your reply to the gentleman's invitation, your fingers hesitate just above the paper. Each word must be chosen with the delicacy of a jeweler selecting pearls. A single misplaced phrase might signal either undue eagerness or cold indifference. Finally, you settle upon, "It would be a pleasure to walk at the Serpentine on Thursday. Next, I shall look forward to the hour with warmth and anticipation." You seal the note, pressing your family's signet gently into the warm wax. You pause then, hands resting upon the desk, your eyes drifting toward the window. Outside, the garden trembles with life, roses bowing in the breeze, sparrows darting among branches, the faint shimmer of dew upon morning grass. You imagine yourself there in just a few days' time, a new chapter of silent promises unfurling with each footstep. At small luncheon follows cucumber sandwiches cut with mathematical precision, delicate watercress arranged like green lace upon fine china. The conversation drifts to the recent ball, a neighbour's new carriage, and the merits of different lace suppliers in Bond Street. Through it all, your mind walks in visible corridors, rehearsing each possible conversation you might share on. Thursday, the afternoon hours are devoted to needlework and quiet reading. You sit near the window, a hoop balanced upon your knees, needle flashing gently in and out of soft muslin. Each stitch anchors your mind, steadying the restless river of thought. You pause now and again to sip tea or glance at the grandfather clock, its pendulum a steady reminder of the day's soft march toward evening. As twilight folds over the city, you join your mother in the parlour to receive callers. A few close friends arrive, their cloaks damp from a brief drizzle, cheeks flushed from the cool air. Tea is served. Small cakes vanish from porcelain plates in a flurry of quiet bites. You exchange pleasantries about music, the latest fashion, plates from Paris, and which florists provide the freshest lilacs. But beneath the surface, every word feels like an echo of Thursday. Your thoughts drift again and again to the path around the Serpentine, to how you might fold your hands gracefully around your parasol, to whether his coat buttons will catch the last rays of sunlight and gleam like small stars at one point. Your friend Miss Everly leans close, her breath sweet with violet pastilles. "I heard a certain gentleman might soon speak to your father," she whispers, eyes glinting with both mischief and tenderness. You hush her quickly, but her words send a shiver down your spine. Not fear, exactly, but a thrill sharp enough to leave a faint blush upon your cheeks as the guests depart. You stand by the door with your mother, bidding each visitor good night. The hall fills with the scent of damp wool cloaks and crushed petals. The small trail of chatter drifts back out into the darkening street. You watch the last lantern bob away in the fog, then close the door, the soft latch echoing faintly in. The corridor, you ascend to your room, each step feeling like a slow, measured dance. The maid waits with a candle, helping you out of your gown, unpinning each curl from your hair. You stand for a moment in your chemise by the window, watching the moonrise slip between drifting clouds. You imagine its pale glow illuminating the water on Thursday, turning each ripple into a secret shared only between you and him at your small writing desk. You retrieve the gentleman's letter once more. You run your fingers along the edge, tracing each elegant loop of ink as though reading a private map. Your reply rests nearby, sealed and waiting to be sent. You stack them together, pressing them gently between your palms, as though hoping to fuse the words into a single shared breath. Finally, you slip beneath your quilt, the linen sheets cool against your flushed skin. Your mind is a quiet garden now, each memory a fragrant blossom opening softly in the moonlight. The hush of the house surrounds you, a silent cocoon stitched from countless small rituals. The hush of evening tea, the gentle tick of clocks, the whispered promise of a coming walk. Your breathing slows. You imagine the faint sound of footsteps. Upon gravel, the slight bend of his arm as he offers it to you, the way your parasol will swing gently at your side. In that imagined hour, there is no need for elaborate codes or carefully chosen words, only the soft cadence of footsteps, the shared hush of morning birds, and the gentle brush of his sleeve against your own. Sleep finds you easily tonight, drawn by the promise of Thursday's quiet intimacy. You drift beneath the surface of dreams, where each heartbeat echoes softly down empty garden paths and moonlit terraces. In this hidden realm, you walk beside him freely, laughter bubbling up like a hidden spring. your gloves forgotten in the dewy grass. Tomorrow will bring more layers of fabric, of decorum, of small strategic silences. But for now, you rest. In the hush between the possible and the promised, a tender bloom half open beneath the stars. The morning of the promised walk arrives with a gentle, silver dawn. You awaken slowly, as though your body already understands the delicacy of the day ahead. Outside your window, the garden breathes under a soft mist, each rosebud trembling, with dewdrops that catch the first light like small pearls. Your maid enters quietly, her face bright with a discreet excitement she dares not name. She draws the curtains wider, allowing the pale morning to wash over your room. As you sit up, the sheets slip from your shoulders, and you feel the coolness of the air settle against your skin like a careful hand. A bath is prepared, the water perfumed with a few drops of rose and bergamot. As you step in, warmth envelops you, melting the last lingering tensions of sleep. Your mind floats, wandering to imagined snatches of conversation, to the shy curve of a smile, to the possibility of a hand held just a moment too long. Once bathed, your maid helps you into your underthings, her fingers deft and gentle. The corset comes next, today laced a touch looser, so you might breathe more easily during the walk. You hold the bedpost lightly, each pull of the laces tightening the world around your ribs until your breath becomes a slender thread. Yet today, you feel no resentment toward this constraint. It is simply another ritual, another veil beneath, which your thoughts remain your own. The gown chosen is a pale blue muslin, simple but graceful, its color echoing the early sky beyond your window. You watch as your maid smooths the fabric over your hips, adjusts the small satin bows at the wrists, and stands back to study the effect. A bonnet is placed carefully over your hair, its silk ribbons trailing delicately along your neck. You glance at your reflection and see a young woman sculpted from possibility, trembling softly like the garden roses. Breakfast is a light affair, a boiled egg, a small slice of buttered toast, and a cup of tea sipped in near silence. Your mother watches you from across the table, her gaze steady but not unkind. When you meet her eyes, she tilts her head ever so slightly, a silent question. You nod, and she gives you the smallest of smiles in return, as if passing a hidden torch. Soon after, a carriage is called. As you step inside, you gather your gloves and parasol, tucking them neatly upon your lap. The driver tips his hat, and with a soft crack of the reins, the carriage rolls forward, each wheel turning like the slow beat of your heart. The city passes by in soft blurs, shopkeepers arranging flowers in baskets, children in smocks chasing each other across quiet streets, a milkman balancing his wares with careful precision. You gaze at each scene as though seeing it for the first time, the world outside your small social stage, momentarily alive and breathing in unexpected ways. At last, the carriage arrives at the entrance to Hyde Park. The morning air is cool and fragrant, carrying the scent of damp earth and opening blooms. You step down carefully, your gloved fingers brushing the driver's arm for balance. The ground beneath your buttoned boots feels solid yet tender, as though each pebble and leaf is aware of your quiet anticipation. He is waiting near the gates, his figure partially obscured by the spreading branches of a young sycamore. As you approach, he straightens, removing his hat in a smooth gesture that reveals a soft uncertainty in his eyes. He steps forward and bows, and you curtsy in response, your gaze lowered just enough to maintain the gentle dance of decorum. A chaperone stands at a polite distance, her expression polite but vigilant, her presence both barrier and bomb. She pretends to examine the nearby rose beds, her gaze occasionally drifting back toward. You like the silent swing of a lantern in the fog, together. You begin your walk along the path bordering the serpentine. The water glimmers under shifting clouds, small ripples trailing where ducks and swans move gracefully across its surface. Early morning riders trot past in the distance, their silhouettes framed in the pale gold of new sunlight. For a while, you walk in silence, each footstep a small verse in an unspoken poem. Your parasol rests lightly upon your shoulder, the ribbons trembling with each movement. At last, he clears his throat softly, his voice emerging like a sparrow from a hedge. "I was unsure if you would accept my invitation," he says, his tone careful but earnest. You turn your face slightly toward him, the brim of your bonnet shading your eyes. "It would have been unkind to refuse such a gracious offer," you reply, your voice a gentle ripple across the stillness. A faint smile curves his lips, and he glances down at the path. For a few steps, his gloved hand brushes close to yours, not quite touching, each near contact sending a small, electric warmth up your arm. He asks about your reading, and you describe your latest volume, a novel set in distant Italy, all moonlit balconies and whispered letters. His eyes brighten, and he confesses a fondness for poetry, especially verses that capture the hush of gardens at twilight. As you talk, you sense that each question is not merely curiosity, but a quiet laying down of small bridges, invitations into deeper pools of thought, each one tentative yet sincere. At one point, you stop to admire a cluster of early roses blooming wildly along a low fence. He leans forward, plucks a small, dew-touched blossom, and hesitates for a moment before offering it to you. You glance quickly at the chaperone, who pretends not to see, her gaze fixed determinedly upon the path ahead. You accept the flower delicately, feeling its soft petals quiver in your fingers. You tuck it into the ribbon of your bonnet, your cheeks warm despite the cool breeze. This small token feels like a universe condensed, a promise, a question, a heartbeat trapped in pink silk. The conversation shifts easily to his family's estate in the countryside, to your fondness for sketching garden scenes, two favorite pieces played at recent musicales. Each topic is a gentle wave, washing over the last, smoothing the sharp edges of uncertainty. Gradually, the path curves back toward the carriage stands. You feel the minutes slipping through your fingers, each one precious and fleeting. The chaperone lingers just far enough away to let you and your companions savor these final breaths of freedom. He pauses near a bench, turning to face you fully. His gaze is steady now, warmed by the rhythm of your shared steps. Might I hope," he begins, voice catching slightly, "that you will permit me to call upon your family soon." Your heart flutters wildly beneath your corset, the moment stretching into a soft, endless horizon. You incline your head, a silent affirmation glowing in your eyes. In this single nod lies an entire symphony, the future dances, the whispered confidences, the possibility of a life spent together, weaving small, quiet joys into each day. He exhales softly, his shoulders easing, as though a great invisible weight has been lifted. A faint, joyful smile illuminates his face. A sunrise breaking through weeks of carefully veiled glances. You return to the carriage together, each step echoing with new warmth. He assists you into the seat, his fingers lingering just a heartbeat, longer against yours. You arrange your skirts carefully, the rose tucked firmly in your bonnet, its perfume drifting gently in the closed space. As the carriage pulls away, you watch him through the small back window, standing still among the soft blooms and early morning mists. His figure grows smaller until it is swallowed by the silver veil of the park. During the ride home, you cradle each memory of the walk like a delicate teacup. His laugh, the brush of his sleeve, the rose in your bonnet, each detail glows. Tiny lanterns lighting the dim corridors of your thoughts. At home, your mother awaits in the drawing room, her embroidery needle paused mid-stitch. She studies your face with gentle precision. You step forward and, without a word, place the rose on the small side table beside her. Her eyes soften. She nods once, her lips lifting in a knowing, quiet smile. The rest of the day unfolds like a soft afterglow. You write a short note to Miss Everly, describing the morning in broad, careful strokes, each phrase chosen to convey decorum, yet unable to entirely conceal the glow beneath. You spend the afternoon by the window, sketching the Serpentine from memory, your pencil strokes capturing the shimmer of water, the curve of distant riders, the small echo of a shared laugh. Dinner is a quiet affair, the air around the table alive with unspoken excitement. Your father clears his throat once or twice as though preparing to speak, but each time he subsides into his soup, his mind likely already turning over the careful protocols of an impending visit. Later, in the gentle hush of your room, you prepare for bed with unhurried grace. Each pin removed from your hair feels like a petal falling in slow motion. You slip into your nightgown, the fabric whispering over your skin, your mind lingering on the gentle cadence of his voice, the warmth in his eyes. You pause before your mirror, studying your reflection in the dim lamplight. You touch the space just beneath your collarbone where his gaze had lingered for the briefest moment, a warmth blooming there like a secret rose. Finally, you slip beneath the covers. Your body curls softly, your breath deepening as sleep draws. Closer, in the half-light between waking and dreams, you walk once more by the Serpentine, your parasol bobbing lightly at your side, your steps slow and easy. You hear his voice, calm and certain, blending with the rustle of reeds and the quiet ripple of water. The dreams that come are gentle, colored in pale blues and soft greens, filled with gardens that unfold endlessly, each turn revealing another quiet space in which to pause and rest together. Story 3. Teacups, tussie-moosies, and the afternoon hush. The rituals of the Victorian parlour. Good evening, once again, dear listener. Rest your hands softly upon your blanket. Feel the quiet hush of the evening fold around you like a gentle shawl. Tonight, we find ourselves not in a ballroom or along a misty park path, but in the smaller, fragrant universe of the Victorian parlour, a world of teacups and lace, of small glances across polished tables, of soft sighs and silent meanings, carried in petals and porcelain. Imagine the soft clatter of carriage, wheels fading as you step inside a townhouse on a narrow London street. The hall is cool and scented with beeswax and rosewater. A young maid takes your cloak and bonnet, her movements quick and precise, her eyes lowered in practiced deference. You feel the hush of the house around you, like a held breath, each object carefully arranged to whisper a quiet invitation. Come in, sit down, linger a while. You step into the parlour, a room of gentle afternoon light filtering through gauzy curtains. The fireplace is low and crackling softly, its warmth more symbolic than necessary on this mild day. Around you, every surface gleams, polished mahogany tables, a faintly floral rug underfoot, and cabinets filled with delicate treasures. A porcelain figurine of a shepherdess, a small fan painted with scenes of a Venetian canal, a Chinese tea caddy lacquered in crimson and gold here. You feel the heartbeat of the Victorian household, not loud and echoing like a ballroom waltz, but slow and steady, like the quiet ticking of a mantel clock. You move to a high-backed chair near the window. The cushions give slightly beneath you, the silk cover cool against your palms as you settle. On a small table rests a vase of freshly gathered flowers, a tussie-moussie. These small hand-tied bouquets were not mere decorations, they were subtle. Codes, each blossom chosen carefully to convey secret messages. A sprig of rosemary for remembrance, a violet for modesty, perhaps a tiny rosebud for budding affection. You reach out to examine it more closely, inhaling the mingled perfumes, and imagine the careful fingers that arranged each stem this morning. In the half-light before visitors arrived, nearby, a silver tea service gleams in the muted light. Each piece is a tiny monument to ritual, the sugar tongs shaped like delicate swans, the sloping teapot that tips its spout as though offering a gentle bow, the small porcelain cups thin enough to see sunlight pass through. Your hostess enters, her steps muffled by the thick carpet. She greets you with a gentle nod, her gown a soft cloud of lavender tulle, her hair arranged in a series of pinned loops that resemble petals about to unfold. Her smile is small but warm, a candle flame. Rather than a roaring fire, "Do sit," she murmurs, her voice no louder than a cat's purr. She moves to the tea service and begins the slow dance of preparation, warming the pot, measuring the tea leaves with a tiny silver scoop, pouring water in a precise circle, the steam rising in fragrant curls that drift toward the ceiling. You watch her hands, the small tremors of age at her knuckles, the quick, bird-like motions as she arranges the cups. Each movement is a language older than words, the offering of comfort, the creation of a moment set apart from the clamor of the outer world. She asks after your family, her questions drifting across the table like delicate moths. You answer in kind, speaking softly of your father's health, your mother's latest charity luncheon, the small triumph of your embroidery finally winning a ribbon at the summer fair. Each topic is a petal gently laid upon the table, each reply a ripple that travels quietly outward. The tea is poured. You accept the cup with both hands, feeling its warmth seep into your fingers like a soft, golden glow. You sip slowly, letting the liquid bloom across your tongue, the flavor a subtle garden of distant fields and sunlit mornings. The sugar tongs clink faintly against the small sugar bowl, each crystal dropping into the tea with a soft splash that echoes like a raindrop in a pond. You glance toward the mantel, where a small collection of miniature portraits sits in an arc. Tiny faces, some stern, some wistful, gaze out across the room. Each one is a frozen whisper of the past. A young girl lost to scarlet fever, a son who set off for India and never returned, a cousin who scandalized the family by marrying an artist. These are ghosts that inhabit the parlor gently, their presence felt in the slight sag of a cushion, the careful arrangement of lace doilies, the hush that lingers even in the bright afternoon. The clock chimes 3 times, each note as round and smooth as a pearl dropping into water. Your hostess rises to offer you a plate of small cakes, pale lemon slices, tiny almond biscuits, soft sponge squares, dusted with powdered sugar like a first snowfall. You select one with cautious fingers, marveling at its delicate sweetness. Conversation turns to the neighborhood. You hear of Mr. Wentworth's new greenhouse, a glinting structure filled with orchids and ferns, rumored to be as extravagant. as a ballroom, then news of Miss Blythe's engagement to a young naval officer, whispered to be a match of both affection and advantageous connection. Each story is shared as though it were a thin, fragile thread. Your hostess weaves them carefully, ensuring no single strand pulls too tightly or frays under scrutiny as you listen. You turn the tussie-moussie slowly in your hand, letting its perfume gather around you like a protective cloud. You imagine how each flower was chosen this morning. Perhaps the lavender meant devotion, or the daisies signaled innocence, or the ivy stood for fidelity. You wonder if there is a message there for you, a quiet hint about future invitations, or a gentle blessing on some silent, unseen hope outside. You hear the distant clatter of a delivery cart, and the sharp cry of a newsboy hawking the day's papers. But within the parlour, the world is a soft cocoon of steam, sugar, and layered silences. A small dog dozes on a cushion near your feet, its breathing slow and rhythmic. Now and again it shifts, sighing deeply, as though sharing in the quiet pleasure of this afternoon's gentle pageant. When your hostess pours a second cup, you feel the ritual deepen. With each refill, the bond between guest and hostess grows softer, warmer, like the second verse of a lullaby. The conversation drifts towards small reflections. A neighbor's garden rose that bloomed out of season. The peculiar habit of a pet canary who refuses to sing when anyone is watching. Each story seems to glow faintly in the air, then fade slowly, leaving only the warmth of shared presence behind. At one point, your hostess pauses, her fingers hovering above the teapot. Her gaze shifts slightly toward the window, where the lace curtain shivers faintly in a passing breeze. You follow her eyes and feel, in that shared glance, a deeper quiet, the collective recognition of time's slow, gentle erosion. The petals in your tussie-mussy will wither by tomorrow, the tea will cool, the cakes will be crumbs upon a porcelain plate. Yet this small ceremony, these soft exchanges, linger far longer than the echo of a grand ball or the clang of a carriage bell. The clock chimes again, this time for each chime a slow, descending sigh. You realize the afternoon has folded itself into an almost dreamlike haze. You rise slowly, feeling the slight protest in your knees after so long sitting still, your skirts gathering around you like a low murmured promise. Your hostess accompanies you to the hall, her hand light upon your elbow, her smile the soft glow of a lantern guiding you into the descending dusk. A young maid appears once more with your cloak and bonnet, her fingers deft as she fastens each button and smooths the folds. You step outside, feeling the late afternoon air kiss your cheeks, the light already sinking into that pale violet that signals evening's quiet approach. You glance back once, seeing the glow of the parlour windows, the soft outlines of flowers on the sill, the ripple of lace curtains, a world entire, contained within a single room. As your carriage carries you home, you cradle the tussie-mussy in your lap, its perfume a small, fragrant echo of the parlour's hush. You think of the stories shared, the small tremors of laughter, the warmth of tea slipping down your throat like a whispered promise. You think of the portraits on the mantel, the thin trails of lives woven into every thread of conversation. The city around you flickers past in shades of dusk, lamplighters moving from post to post like quiet moths, shopkeepers closing shutters with soft thuds, a lone figure sweeping a doorstep with slow, hypnotic strokes. By the time you arrive home, a gentle resolve has settled in your chest, the sense that each small ritual carries a power of its own. No grand ball or extravagant gown could replace the hush of a parlour afternoon, where every glance and sip and sigh is a love letter to slowness itself. You step inside, your cloak falling from your shoulders like a final petal. You place the tussie-mussy in a small vase beside your bed, watching as the flowers catch the last whisper of twilight. Tonight, as you brush your hair and slip into your nightdress, you think of teacups and tiny cakes, of violets tucked among rosemary sprigs, of quiet glances exchanged across polished tables. You feel your breath slow, each inhale a gentle sip of remembered warmth, each exhale a soft release into the waiting dark. As you slip beneath the covers, the hush of the parlour returns to you like the faintest echo of piano notes played far away. The morning after your visit to the parlour dawns in a delicate hush, as though the entire city itself wishes to preserve the quiet glow of yesterday's tea. You awaken to a faint bird call beyond the glass, a pale seam of light slicing across. Your counterpane, you turn slowly in bed, savouring the smooth chill of the linen against your skin. Beside you, on the small wooden table, the tussie-mussy you brought home rests in a little vase. Overnight, its petals have softened, the rosebud beginning to yield to the air. Each tiny daisy now drooping slightly in tender surrender. Yet, the fragrance remains, a gentle sigh of lavender and rosemary that carries whispers of the parlour's hush into this new day. As you rise, the quiet footfalls of the maid outside your door remind you that life stirs even in such gentle dawns. She arrives with a tray, a modest breakfast of buttered toast and strong tea. You lift the delicate cup, feeling its warmth gather in your palms, the aroma curling upward like a soft invitation to wake slowly. Kindly, in the dressing room, you consider your gown for the day, a pale lilac muslin perhaps, embroidered lightly at the cuffs, or a deep green walking dress if the weather holds fair. Today promises a string of calls, those polite afternoon visits to neighbours and acquaintances, each one a small theatre of lace gloves and polite bows. Your mother joins, you in the drawing room, her shawl arranged just so, her gloved hands resting upon her lap like two sleeping doves. She remarks on the fading tussie-mussy with a knowing glance, her lips turning in a faint, approving curve. Without words, she communicates a certain pride in your poise. In the delicate web of social duties you continue to weave so diligently, as the carriage is readied, you slip on your gloves, each finger sheathed in soft ivory kid leather, each button fastened with the small hook you keep tucked away in your sewing box. The simple act of buttoning gloves becomes a meditation, a preparation for entering the gentle labyrinth of the day's social exchanges. Outside, the city trembles gently into motion. Market stalls bloom with colours, radishes in pink mounds, golden apples shining in neat pyramids, violet plums nestled in wicker baskets. Street sweepers dance their slow, methodical choreography, stirring little clouds of dust that catch the light and drift away like tiny ghosts. Your first call is to Lady Fitzhugh, an elderly friend of your mother's. Her parlour feels like stepping into a memory. Faint floral wallpaper, heavy brocade drapes, a pair of Staffordshire spaniels perched on the hearth like silent guardians. Lady Fitzhugh greets you with a soft clasp of the hands. She wears a lace cap that trembles slightly with each nod, her eyes bright beneath brows as delicate as drawn lace. Tea is offered immediately, accompanied by small honey biscuits. You both speak of the weather, of the Queen's rumoured preference for lace fans over feathered ones this season, and of Lady Fitzhugh's latest attempts at watercolour landscapes, earnest meadows filled with improbable purple, co-SLIPS. As she talks, you feel the hours slow to a trickle. Each phrase is savored, each silence between sips honored as if it were a fragile bloom. Her stories spill out like fine embroidery threads, tales of her youthful parties in Bath, of a long-ago suitor who once wrote her verses on roses paper. You listen intently, offering the occasional soft murmur or sympathetic tilt of the head, letting each tale fold around you like the gentle folds of her crocheted shawl. When you rise to leave, Lady Fitzhugh presses a small lace handkerchief into your palm, embroidered with her initials. You accept it with a reverent nod, understanding it as a symbol of quiet alliance, a promise to carry forward her stories into your own parlour conversations. Back in the carriage, you turn the handkerchief over in your gloved hands, feeling the slight roughness of the thread beneath the smooth cotton. Outside the window, clouds gather above the rooftops, a soft grey veil drifting in from the west. Your next visit is to Mrs. Allerton, a lively woman known for her fascination with botany and her extensive conservatory. Her home, in contrast to Lady Fitzhugh's, is a bright tapestry of green and gold ferns spill from every corner. Potted orchids bloom in riotous colours, and delicate hanging baskets sway gently in the afternoon draught. Mrs. Allerton receives you in her conservatory, itself a fragrant oasis where sunlight filters through coloured glass panes, scattering the walls with small rainbows. She guides you through her latest acquisitions, a night-blooming cereus poised to open its ghostly petals, a heliotrope with blossoms that turn their faces eagerly toward the pale light. You sip lemon verbena tea while she recounts the latest horticultural gossip, which nurseries have the rarest bulbs, which rival has accidentally cross-pollinated to species to disastrous effect. Her laughter is bright and pealing, like small silver bells tossed in a spring breeze. Here, the language is different, less hushed, more like a bright babbling brook. Yet the ritual persists, the offering of tea, the careful arrangement of small cakes, the poised exchange of secrets, both botanical and social. Mrs. Allerton presses upon you a small cutting from her prized scented geranium as you depart. Its leaves release a fresh lemony fragrance when touched, and you cradle it carefully, imagining where it might thrive in your own small window garden. By the time you return to your carriage, the sky has darkened further, a drizzle whispering softly upon the cobblestones. The sound is like a lullaby played on glass, each drop a tiny finger tapping out the day's slow finale. The final visit of the afternoon is to Miss Everleigh, your dear friend and confidant. Her parlour feels like a second home, a room of plush cushions, a piano waiting patiently against the wall, a faint scent of orris root powder hanging in the air. Miss Everleigh receives you with an embrace, a rare breach of decorum that feels all the sweeter for its spontaneity. She serves tea herself, her hands moving confidently despite the small tremor of excitement you know so well. Over steaming cups, you confide in her the quiet echoes of yesterday's parlour hush, the meanings you read in each flower, each careful sip. She listens, wide-eyed and delighted, her gloved fingers dancing in small, expressive flourishes as she imagines each detail. She shares her own latest intrigue, a gentleman caller who presented her with a book of poetry, bound in pale green velvet. The pages, she says, smell faintly of pressed violets and the sea. You lean closer, breathing in her joy as though it were your own, the two of you weaving your stories together like threads in a tapestry only you can read. As you take your leave, she presses a tiny pressed violet into your gloved palm, its petals dry but still rich with hidden fragrance. You slip it into your reticule, promising silently to keep it as a talisman against the restless churn of larger gatherings. The carriage rolls through streets now gleaming with rain, the lamps flickering, like small stars fall into earth. You watch each reflection slip and shiver across the window pane. The city a dreamscape of gaslight and shadows. Upon arriving home, you are met by your mother's gentle gaze. She asks only if your visits went well, and you nod, feeling the quiet weight of the day settle into your bones. You show her the cutting from Mrs. Allerton, the handkerchief from Lady Fitzhugh, the violet from Miss Everleigh. She smiles, her eyes softening as she understands the small, precious alliances you have gathered like tiny treasures. As the house quiets for the evening, you change into your nightdress, the fabric cool and whisper-thin. You place each gift carefully beside your bed, the tussie-mussy now browning softly at the edges, the violet trembling in its pressed fragility, the geranium cutting placed in a shallow dish of water to keep it alive through the night. The room glows faintly in lamplight, each shadow stretching into delicate filigree across the walls. You climb into bed, feeling the hush of the day wrap around you like a final, soft shawl. Your eyes drift closed as you remember the hush of Lady Fitzhugh's parlour, the green riot of Mrs. Allerton's conservatory, the sweet laughter echoing in Miss Everleigh's familiar warmth. You think of each sip of tea, each cautious question, each quick, bright smile hidden behind a fan or a glove. As sleep beckons, you carry with you the fragrance of lemon geranium, the ghostly softness of pressed violets, the sweet crumble of honey biscuits. In your dreams, parlours bloom endlessly, each room a different world of silk and steam and whispered confidences in those dreams. You never leave, you move from room to room like a silent guest at an eternal tea, your footsteps muffled on. Soft carpets, each doorway opening into a new chamber of gentle joys. You hear the soft clink of porcelain, the quiet hush of lace against a sleeve, the low murmur of voices drifting in and out like the gentle waves upon a distant shore. Breathe now. Let the warmth of tea and the glow of quiet afternoons carry you deeper into rest. Sleep well, dear friend, for tomorrow promises more parlours, more tussie-moosies, more unhurried sips of kindness. The next morning, the rain has vanished, leaving the air washed and gentle, each leaf in the garden trembling under small globes of dew. You wake to a hush that feels almost sacred, as though the whole city has chosen to tiptoe around you for one precious morning. From your bed, you watch a small sparrow hop along the window ledge, its feathers puffed against the coolness. The tussie-mussy by your bedside now droops heavily, the petals curling like tiny scrolls of old parchment. You reach for it and inhale. The last traces of lavender and rosemary, a fading whisper of the parlour's quiet promise. When you rise, your maid enters carrying a small tray, warm milk sweetened with honey, a few slices of soft toast spread with currant preserve. The taste is gentle, each bite a muted blessing against the stillness of the dawn. Today is a special day. You are to host your own afternoon tea, a small gathering of ladies from your circle, each one a careful piece in the social puzzle that you arrange so meticulously. This is no grand ball nor extravagant garden party. Rather, it is an intimate performance of gentility and subtle power, of invisible lines drawn and erased by a glance, a raised cup, a whispered phrase. You move to your dressing room, the morning light pale as milk upon the walls. Your gown for today is chosen with precise care, a pale ivory muslin embroidered with delicate sprays of blue forget-me-nots, a subtle hint of sentimentality for those perceptive enough to read it. Your hair is brushed and coiled in gentle loops. At the nape of your neck, each pin placed with the tender concentration of a violinist tuning her instrument. A small sapphire pin, a gift from your late aunt, is set just above your ear, a quiet glimmer amid the waves of brown hair in the drawing room. The final preparations unfold like a gentle symphony, the silver tea service polished until it captures soft, rippling reflections, the plates arranged with small cakes, rosewater sponge, lemon tartlets, thin slices of seed cake topped with sugared violets. The air is scented with a mixture of sweet peas and newly cut mint, arranged in small vases that line the windowsills and side tables. Each tussie-mussy laid on the table bears its own quiet message, composed early this morning while the city still slept. Sprigs of thyme for courage, violets for modesty, white heather for good luck. As the clock chimes 2:30, the first guest arrives. Lady Winscombe, dignified and swan-like, enters with a gentle incline of her head. Her gown glimmers faintly with fine seed pearls that catch the light like dew on spider silk. You greet her warmly, leading her to the armchair closest to the fireplace, where the warmth will keep her delicate ankles from the draught. Next comes Miss Everleigh, her cheeks still bright from the walk, her gloved hands holding a small gift wrapped in pale blue paper. She presses it into your palms with a conspiratorial smile. Inside is a fresh book of sonnets, bound in lilac linen. You thank her with a look that speaks volumes, your fingers lingering just a moment longer on the wrapping dot. Mrs. Allerton follows, carrying a small basket of violets from her conservatory. The scent rises between you in an immediate floral embrace. Behind her is Miss Linwood, a quiet, observant young woman with an affinity for sketching, her eyes already darting softly around the room, capturing each arrangement, each interplay of lace and flower as they settle. Your parlour becomes a garden of low murmurs and soft laughter. You move among them like a gentle breeze, your movements measured, your voice pitched to draw out each guest's most delicate confidences. The tea is served in thin porcelain cups with gold filigree, each saucer painted with a different tiny botanical motif: lilac, hyacinth, primrose, wild rose. You notice which flower each guest receives, a secret matching game known only to you. Miss Everleigh receives the lilac, her fingers curling instinctively around the soft lavender blooms, as though they had chosen her long ago. Conversation drifts, from the latest charity bazaar to a rumoured engagement between a young viscount and a merchant's daughter, whispered as though it were a ghost flitting just beyond the drapes. Each word is cushioned by the gentle chime of teaspoons against porcelain, the hush of fingers smoothing skirts, the subtle breath of the flowers around the room. Mrs. Allerton speaks animatedly of a new fern she's cultivating, its fronds said to resemble small lace fans. She leans forward, her eyes gleaming, as she describes the care it requires, the precise misting each morning, the careful shading from harsh afternoon light. The group listens intently, each guest suspended in this small wonder, a fern transformed into a symbol of hidden devotion. Lady Winscombe recounts a story from her youth, a summer spent at a coastal estate where each morning began with a swim in the icy sea. Her voice grows soft as she describes the hush of dawn mist over the waves, the electric shock of cold water against bare skin, the way her heart would beat so wildly that each breath felt like a stolen jewel. Miss Linwood, meanwhile, sketches quietly in the corner of her notebook. Now and then, she glances up to capture a fleeting tilt of her chin. a wisp of hair fallen from a pinned bun, the slight tremor of a hand poised above a teacup, her pencil, becomes another guest at the table, whispering in soft graphite lines across creamy paper. Between sips of tea and delicate bites of cake, the afternoon floats onward in small, shimmering currents. You notice how each guest unfolds in stages, like a flower coaxed open by gentle sunlight. First, the formal petals of greetings and polite observation, then the softer, inner petals of confession, memory, quiet longing. You observe these transformations with a quiet satisfaction, feeling the subtle power of hosting the way a well-placed cushion, a perfectly timed refill of tea, a small nod at the right moment can shape the entire current of conversation. As the hour drifts toward its soft close, you rise and move to the pianoforte in the corner. The keys gleam like small ivory boats waiting to set sail. You play a gentle nocturne, each note a hush, a slow tide washing over the room. The guests sink further into their chairs, eyes half closed, heads tilting as if listening to a distant lullaby whispered through a keyhole. When the piece ends, silence folds itself neatly around the room. For a moment, no one speaks. The world outside seems to hold its breath. No passing carriages, no echo of footsteps, only the last fading hum of the final chord echoing in your bones. At last, Miss Everleigh claps softly, her eyes bright with tears. Lady Winscombe dabs delicately at the corner of her eye with a lace kerchief. Mrs. Allerton exhales slowly, her hands resting on her knees as though she has just come ashore from a long voyage. The guests begin to gather their gloves and reticules, each movement slow and dreamlike. You offer each lady a small tussie-mussy to take home tiny bouquets of thyme, rosemary and sweet violets tied with pale blue ribbon. Each guest receives hers as though accepting a private vow, a gentle benediction to carry into the twilight. Outside, the light has softened into a golden haze, the street lamps beginning to glow like patient stars awaiting their cue. The air carries the faintest chill, and you watch as each carriage carries your guests into the deepening dusk, each one a small lantern bobbing away into the city's labyrinth. Returning to your parlour, you find the empty teacups, the stray crumbs, the ghostly impressions of where each guest sat. You pause, letting your eyes drift over each cushion, each scattered flower petal, each delicate trace of breath and warmth. The room now feels like a seashell pressed to your ear, echoing with laughter, sighs, and the soft music of human presence. You move among the remnants slowly, touching the armrest here, smoothing a crease there, your fingers becoming quiet stitches in the tapestry of the day. As you change into your evening gown, you reflect on the subtle choreography of the afternoon, the weaving together of stories, the delicate balancing of confidences, the small triumphs of connection. You think of the blue forget-me-nots on your dress and how they mirrored the messages carried home in each tussie-mussy. Dinner is taken in near silence, your mother occasionally glancing at you with a soft gleam of approval. She does not ask for details. She knows they will arrive later in the form of letters and quiet gossip drifting through the week like soft perfume. In your chamber, the lamplight pulls across your dressing table, illuminating the small pressed violet from Miss Everleigh, the fern cutting from Mrs. Allerton, now waiting in a small dish, and the sonnet book wrapped in lilac linen. You read a few lines from the sonnets before bed, your eyes moving slowly across the gentle rhythms. Each word feels like a cool hand against your brow, each stanza a soft exhale against your pulse. Finally, you slip into bed, the sheets crisp and faintly scented with lavender water. You turn once, twice, finding the small hollow where your body settles into the mattress like a ship settling into a quiet harbor. Your mind drifts back to the afternoon, the hush before the first guest arrived, the warmth of shared laughter, the final bow of the piano keys echoing into the silence. You feel your breath slow, each inhale gathering the softness of the day, each exhale releasing the small weights you carried without knowing. As sleep draws you downward, you wander once more through the afternoon parlor in your dreams. The piano plays on its own. Flowers bloom endlessly from every vase. Teacups float gently across the air like porcelain boats. You see your guests moving gracefully, their gowns trailing soft light. Their voices a gentle music that rises and falls like distant waves.